to Amendment 97 in the name of the Noble Lord, Lord Purvis, and also the Noble Lady Baroness Sheehan, to which I attach my name. And it's a pleasure to follow both noble lords. And I particularly associate myself with the comments on ending fossil fuel subsidies just made by the Noble Baroness Lady Sheehan. Since they've already amply explained it, I just want to note that we're coming out of an arrangement as an EU member where there was, as I was forced to frequently repeat during the Brexit debate, the generalised scheme of preferences, which meant there were no tariffs and no quotas on goods from least developed countries, with the exceptions of arms and ammunition. And while some of my reservations about the role of trade have already been expressed and will be extended in my comments on Amendment 39, if we think of the words on development aims we hear often in your Lordship's house from the Noble Lord, Lord Ahmed of Wimbledon, we can only hope that we will not be damaging least developed countries with our trade policies. And the regular report is a way of checking on that. This is, my lords, a modest amendment that I very much hope the government will agree with. It could use it to display the progress on one of its avowed policy aims. But I also want to express my support for Amendment 39 in the name of the Noble Lord Purvis of Tweed, also signed by the Noble Baroness Lady Sheehan and Lord McConnell of Glensker-Corradale. As a regular proponent of the Sustainable Development Goals, as a way of bringing systems thinking and understanding of planetary limits into our policies and plans, that will probably be of no surprise to this committee. But I confess, and I acknowledge in advance, that the other proponents may not thank me for my support. For I go back to the words of the amendment. I quote, "Any future international trade agreement will only be eligible for signature or ratification if the provisions do not conflict with and are consistent with the provisions of the Sustainable Development Goals." I remind your Lordship's house, the committee, that the United Kingdom is not on track to meet one of those goals, to which we are, of course, a signatory. Business as usual won't do it, for us or for the rest of the world. Globalisation, trade, has done great damage to the social, environmental and economic fabric of our world. I've already referred your Lordship's house to the Trade and Investments Requirement for Zero Carbon report by the Greenhouse think tank. Any agreement meeting the sustainable goals, any such trade would require a total transformation of our current system. The amendment, if passed, would do nothing less than ensure a peaceful economic revolution, one that could greatly boost the national steel industry, the growing of fruit and vegetables, the utter transformation of our economy, all very much in line with Green Party policy for one planet living. But that is, perhaps, I do them a disservice here, something more than the sign is intended. There is no justification for the fact that salmon accounts for 74% of our fish trade carbon footprint. In 2019, we exported 125,000 tonnes of salmon, 48,000 tonnes of it by air, over half of which was thrown to the US and China. We also imported almost the same amount, 101,000 tonnes. The air-freighted salmon we exported was 64 times more carbon intensive than the almost identical, if cheaper, salmon that we imported. No trade deal lining up with the Sustainable Development Goals could allow that. In 2019, just 16% of the fruit and 54% of the vegetables we consumed in the UK were grown here. Now, we have a climate ideal, indeed, for apples and pears, yet in 2019 we imported 438,000 tonnes more than we exported. The greatest carbon impact came from those we import furthest, from South Africa and New Zealand. Then there's the massive water footprint of flowers, fruit and vegetables we bring from around the world, and the human misery, literally blood, sweat and tears in the seams of fast fashion. A trade deal aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals could not allow this to continue, for of course it would be about delivering the Sustainable Development Goals for other nations as well as for ourselves. But 2/3 of the 2 million tonnes of higher grade steel used in the UK car manufacturer is imported, yet we currently export 4/5 of our scrap steel, which could be an important resource for making new steel through renewables-driven arc furnaces, a Sustainable Development Goals approach that would reshape and largely end both directions of trade. What trade policy, trade deals currently do, my lords, are lock in harms, encourage and support the production of dirty products, fill our shores with rubbish, and a lot of it is utterly pointless. We export 1.25 million tonnes of ice cream every year and import 3 million tonnes. Both of those figures have doubled in the past decade. Think, my lords, of the waste, the pointlessness of such exchange, and acknowledge that a sustainable world, one meeting people's needs and not trashing the planet, a world achieving the balance of economic, social, and environmental goals that are the Sustainable Development Goals, the trade landscape would look very different indeed. So I commend the amendment to the committee and I urge everyone to back it. Thank you, my lords.